It's really good to see
100%.
you. How are
Good to
you?
see you. Yeah, all good. Look at this little office.
Isn't it great?
So it's unreal.
Yeah,
So
this
you
was,
did the stencil work and then Sean did the rest?
oh no, I designed everything.
This is all you?
All me, baby. All up
It's
to this
good.
wood. Sean wanted this really boring wood from the store, and I was like, that's just not gonna happen. Like, I need a little bit of West Coast in my life, and I
Hmm.
just felt like that really made such a big difference. And then the mitochondria, he got to choose what he wanted on the wall, but
Is Sean using the same space?
yeah, so Sean's desk is actually right here.
Okay.
So we're together.
Because I was following Sean's stuff and
Oh,
then
you
all of a sudden
should
he
be.
went, I know, but then he went 100% French. I'm like, all right, dude.
He just put out, so that's something I'm currently his business coach, actually. So this is exciting. So, yeah, he's now putting out all English stuff as well. So I'm really
Okay.
encouraging him when he does these big presentations to do it all in English as well, because his demographic is obviously French, but what he's talking about is relevant to so many people. And I feel like he's really missing out on a huge demographic there. So, for example, like his
What it,
zero to guide came out in English too. He's got 20,000 views on it already, which is just crazy. Yeah.
what's his audience?
Athletes and coaches mostly. So a
Okay.
lot of CrossFit, a lot of endurance athletes, but a lot of coaches too. So really high level CrossFit coaches here in France. I would say the majority, like 70% of his following is probably French. The market is just pretty well untapped here. I would say it's 10 years behind North America, really. So
Yeah.
we're bursting bubbles, you know?
Sick.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
And then is he 100% online?
Now he is. He just dropped all his clients. He wouldn't have done it actually if I hadn't told him to.
All
But
right, Lynn.
no,
Okay.
he will
Get
tell
off
you
get
all
off
of
your high
this.
horse, love. Get off your high horse.
Just saying,
It was my design. I'm his business coach. All
100%
right.
though. He will admit it 1000% because he didn't want to drop his clients. And this is something that I actually want to talk to you about today. He didn't want to drop his clients until June next year. But the tidal wave of chaos was coming. It's like if he didn't drop the clients and allow space and room to actually grow with his business and the potential that was coming, he wouldn't have had time to take on things that are actually worthwhile. So
For sure.
it's
100%.
uh it's been a big change and he's loving it, like absolutely adoring it.
It's also just not an easy thing to let go of guaranteed income.
A
You
hundred
know what I mean?
percent.
It's fucking terrifying. Where you're like, holy shit, what
Well,
if, what if, what if? Particularly when you've built up this reputation between in-person coaching, where all of a sudden then it's like, oh, I'm kind of going into an unknown field right now where I don't have a reputation, where there's not guaranteed income.
so Sean has been, to be fair, he has been building up his online audience for 2 years. Like he has over 250 podcasts out there. He
He's
has
been on it.
he's been on it, and that was kind of the thing, is like it was a build up to get to this point. And that's one of the questions I do have, and we can cover it now. This is why I record from the beginning, is like that natural progression of coaching and working with clients is like you don't just jump into online work and only, well, you could do it that way, but there's this also a scarcity mindset, I think, that comes with
100%.
like if I don't work my ass off and I don't hustle and I don't work 80 hours per week as a coach, I'm not going to be successful and I won't make enough money. And I think that's something I'm really trying to break habits around for people.
It's yeah, the scarcity mindset is huge in coaches. That's where coaches like Sean, coaches like myself, where we kind of went all in on this, where we're like, there's no other option. There are other coaches that kind of do this as a part-time thing where I can't fully relate to it, but it's even on days off. I'm in a group right now with a group of other coaches, and I had a day off yesterday, and they were like, "Is it a full day off?" And I was like, "Oh no, like I'll still check in with clients, I'll still do this." And they're like, "Okay, like, are you gonna sleep in?" And I was like, like I'll feel guilty if I sleep in past, a certain thing. They're like, "Okay, you need to like give yourself permission to actually maybe have a day off here. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, well, I didn't even realize it actually is a thing where this whole guilt about sleeping in or guilt about not or taking a full day off. I didn't realize like it's a very much it's a common thing with all coaches where we like,
100%. Until somebody
particularly where
gives
we're working
you,
for ourselves, permission.
right. Until
Yeah,
somebody gives you permission to actually take that time off, most
I
people
know.
wouldn't. Like Sean
Ever.
never ever takes the time off. He
Mm,
always has his phone on hand. If somebody messages
same,
him, he's right on it. And it's like, if you
same.
read books, let's say by Tim Ferriss, the 4 Hour Work Week and things
Mm-hmm.
like that, it's all about batching your time. And because coaching as well, let's say entrepreneurship in a whole, you're not only just coaching clients, you're running an entire business, which there's social media, there's your scheduling, there's your admin work, there's your finances, there's your coaching on top of that, which is usually 40 to 60 hours a week if you're crazy, like
Mm-hmm.
most coaches are, and then you end up just never having space or time, and that chaos that you've created around you is actually deterring from you to like actually be productive in a sense. And so I heard something actually from somebody the other day, who was doing consult with me, and she heard this from another coach, and she's like, you have to stop having your job, or sorry, your like coaching job as a hobby. So like coining it a jobby, because you're doing it part-time, right? And it's never something that you put as a priority. So there's the part-time coaches and then there's the hustlers. And if you just give permission to yourself to actually take some time off, allow space for creativity and like flow, everything just runs so much smoother.
I know, and I know what you're saying, but there is also the other side of the coin where you're like, coaches want to almost over deliver on customer service. So when Sean receives that text or thing, he's on it. It doesn't matter if it's 10 o'clock on a Saturday night and he's chilling watching a movie. It's the exact same myself. I'm like in the movie theater. I'm like, I'm gonna respond right now because my client is paying me X amount of money and I want to over deliver on customer service. I was actually in that group when we were talking about it, about the day off and giving myself permission to actually take a full day off. And one of the guy goes, do your clients have your phone number? I was like, yeah. He was like, well, you need to get every client off your phone number. He was like, if you're waking up and the first thing you look at is your phone, which we all do, we say we're not going to do it, but we all do it. And we all
Mhm.
check social media. Anyone that says they don't, I don't believe them.
I don't.
You don't check social media first thing in the morning.
No, never.
Well, you've got 400 kids. So like, you know what I mean? You got,
I only have one living with me, but no, I make a conscious effort not to do that though.
okay. Well, I do. And but the first thing I look at, particularly now time difference as well, because a lot of clients I have are Canada and America. So like when I wake up, there is just a list of client texts. So I'm immediately into that like fight or flight, putting out
Yeah.
fires, okay, tweak the knee, blah blah blah, whatever it is. Yeah,
But
it's a constant battle, isn't it?
why is it, do you think, that we feel like our clients' needs come before our needs? Because aren't you trying to teach your clients to be more conscientious, better at listening to their body, better at following their natural cues, things like that? And so, like, as a coach, what are you teaching them if you're not following that same advice?
Very true. Very true.
Right. And I think it's
And
important to have those boundaries, like before you have your client sign on, be like, these are my working hours. This is my work
mhm.
telephone. This is when you'll get a response from me between this hour and this other hour, or an email between these hours. But otherwise, like, I'm taking time off for myself. And Sean's used this over the last couple of weeks, and the number of coaches that have come back who have said, I really respect you for setting that boundary because I'm not really good at it, is
Yeah.
actually really interesting.
So has he set a boundary with regards to like check-ins and stuff?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Hmm. Yeah, I was thinking about it yesterday. I probably, because the way I have it, I divide my clients up in a list of two, and
Mm.
then I'll contact this list on X day and then I'll contact this list on the other day, or they just contact me being like, hey, did this today, this was not working, this was working, that was amazing. I'm like, okay, cool, just to make sure I'm touching base with all of them every few days. But yeah, I think probably setting, hey, we're going to chat on Wednesdays unless you have an issue, might be the way to go forward.
Well, that way you have time for yourself, and then you have another day that can be dedicated to some other part of your business. And that's the thing is, like,
Yeah.
as a newer coach, let's say, like, I know we both kind of run our businesses solely. I'm starting to get a bit of a team behind me, but I think where was it going with this? I think it's important to have the time to put towards other parts of the business. So, like, the difference between working on and working in your business, right? I know people say this all the time, but if you're not creating space for the rest of your business, how are you going to be successful, right? Because if you're only working with clients, you're not working on building. And that can be a huge thing. But I wanted to say, for a bit of context, you just moved all of your clients online.
Yeah. So I was doing the transit. Well, COVID happened, and I went 100%, and I went 100% online. COVID, as terrible, and we all have our opinions on what the hell that was.
Why?
We go down the COVID rabbit hole right now, will we?
We can giggle about it, and I think people will get the idea of where we think what that whole thing was. Yeah.
100%. So as terrible and as everything as it was, COVID, like, business wise, was one of the best things that could have ever happened to me.
1000% for us too.
Forcing me to go online, like, I had no other option. I remember everyone has different opinions on Grant Cardone, and I get it, either side. He's very he's Marmite, you know what I mean? You either love him or you hate him. But he, in like the first week of COVID, of the shutdowns, he was doing an interview and he said, when everyone else is contracting, you should expand. And I remember just with that quote, I was like, okay, like, let's just fucking go all in online and just offer it to everyone. And even if they don't want to do it, offer them one training session, see if they like it. You know what I mean? I was just like, and then by the time gyms were reopening, people did want to stay online. And then those people were then transitioned to just programs online. So yeah, the online world started for me during COVID. And then this year, or last year, 2022, was when I was like, okay, I'm going to go 100% online at this date. I had October 1st in my head. It was December 1st in the end. But like, probably with Sean, he'll delay it a couple months just to like, yeah, it's gonna happen. So yeah, the transition was hard and good though. Hard and good.
And how are you finding it now?
Good. I have 26 clients currently online. It's weird at times, like even days like today. So I had some Spanish lessons this morning. I did my clients, getting back to all clients when I woke up first thing this morning. Then I did my Spanish lessons, and then I do a little bit of just, again, customer service. And then I went to the gym, and now I'm back here doing a podcast, and then I'm gonna do some programming. But it's still like almost like a little bit of guilt where I'm like, I think I should be doing more. I'm like, how much more can I? I don't know. It's, again, just still in that mentality of like 40 to 60 sessions a week is like how I'm gonna stay head above water here, but it's not that case anymore. So I'm almost waiting for that switch. People keep asking me about my time here in Spain, and they're like, how is it? Is it amazing? I think half of them think I'm on holiday or something. So like, I'm just partying or lying on the beach every day.
Yeah.
And then I don't really know how to respond to. I'm like, I'm having a good time, but it's just like now normal life. But normal life with a little bit of guilt for not working as hard as I used to work. So I'm almost waiting for that switch to flick a little bit. Again, that permission, almost like, hey, I don't have to work or have 6 hours sleep every day and, be exhausted every single day. So,
well,
it's good.
Well, I'm proud of you, because I think it's a leap of faith in yourself, and a leap of faith in your abilities to actually like provide for yourself. And I think we like back to the scarcity mindset is like we always kind of have this thought that if you're not working in the cog wheel of corporate life for the 9 to 5, that we're not going to be able to survive because we're not doing what the rest of everybody else is doing. And a lot of people tell us that, like, you're going into a business that is unstable and uncertain and all of those things. But if you trust yourself and you have a good method that you've tried out, whether it's working in person or not, like it doesn't matter whether we're talking about online or not, if your method works, you should trust that method and trust your abilities. And I think it comes down to like a potential lack of trust within yourself or within within, like, I think there's so many things around us that tell us all the time that we're not doing the right thing by being entrepreneurs. We have so much information around us telling us that all the time. Like, you should be going to school to get to become a lawyer or a doctor or a thing or this or whatever. So I think it can be really challenging for people. I know, like, when I first started telling Sean, like, okay, by the end of the year, you have to be done with clients. He was like, nah, June next year. And I was like, okay, how does January 1st sound? And he's like, nah. And then October came around. He's like, okay, maybe end of December. And, he honestly ended up offloading a whole bunch of his clients to colleagues in the area because he couldn't keep up with the demand that was happening with his online stuff, with his seminars, with everything that was going on. And so it was really clear to him at that point that he had to, or else he was going to burn out. And that's something obviously that's very close to me because I fully burnt out. It took me 2 years to dig myself out of the hole of burnout. And so now it's like, how do you build that authenticity around your business and how you want your business to actually feel? And what do you actually need, right? Because we think that we need so much more than we actually do. And I do think that Europe has a better work-life balance. I mean, we're both in Europe now. So, like the costs are slightly different and things like that. But, the change in Sean's even just manner of being within the house and being around has shifted greatly. Like, I gave him a plan, he stuck to it, and he finished it within like 3 hours for the day. And he's like, I'm actually feeling okay with not getting anything else done today, and going for the walk and doing his training and doing all of those things that he wants to do that actually we should be doing for our own general well-being as well. It's very interesting how if you just take that leap of faith, things shift for you.
For sure. I'm still waiting for the 100% shift. That old saying, if you're at the beach, be at the beach. If you're in the office, be at the office. Instead of like being at the beach and thinking, I really should be at the office right now.
Or being on your phone at the beach because you're on the phone at the office at the beach.
100%. So like, I'm just, yeah, it'll come. This is all new. But yeah. So what's Nutrition Hub right now? What does that entail?
Oh, you're podcasting me now, eh? Yeah, it's morphing, it's changing. So something that people probably don't know is that over the last couple of years, while I was kind of recovering from the burnout / autoimmune diagnosis and all of that stuff, was that I started doing a lot of social media work and website design on the back. So I've now hired somebody else to do that, and I'm sticking strictly to business coaching, but it is going to be part of our kind of repertoire. So now we do have like a design team / website design team that works with us. Obviously, the Holistic Nutrition Hub platform that is there for coaching. I also started an online nutrition school with 2 other colleagues in Canada. So that's going to be a health coaching certification we'll be launching sometime late spring, I think. So that's been a really big project, but a really rewarding one. Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, Kevin and I actually met at CSNN Vancouver, where I was teaching, and Kevin was a holistic nutrition student. So yeah, we go way back. When was that?
2016, 2017, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's actually really cool to see the evolution of where the holistic nutrition certification, and you were a personal trainer before that, but like what you can actually do with your certification and where you can take these things and what routes you can take. Yeah, your, I guess, different certifications where they can take you. So it's kind of
For sure.
interesting.
I gotta say, I don't I don't do nutrition with clients anymore.
Interesting. So that was going to be
None.
one of my questions, and
Yeah.
it's interesting. And so I want to know more about that. And one of the things that I'm trying to do with the podcast this year is get different people's experiences within the industry and find out why or why not they haven't started a business, or why or why not their business wasn't successful, and actually share it. So tell
Yeah.
me more.
So as a personal trainer, you'll get X number of clients in, and majority it's always going to be fat loss. That's the
Mm,
bread and butter. People just want to lose fat. Key thing to losing fat is being in a calorie deficit.
mm,
What I found, I thought by me getting maybe a nutrition diploma or whatever, it would almost give me the answer.
mm,
New food is so emotional for people
mm,
that to get someone to change their eating is very, very difficult. Particularly when I was in Vancouver, the majority, it's such a heavy Asian influence over there. To have a white Irish guy who grew up on meat and potatoes his whole life, to talk to them about culturally what they should eat, and yeah, it just got to the point where I don't. People would ask me about nutrition. I'd be like, I can refer you out to someone, but I'm not. Yeah, I'm not doing that. If you want help in this field, I can absolutely help you. But if you want to go the nutrition route, I can refer you out. I'm not. Yeah, it was just far too emotional.
mm, mm.
Like I would like you know yourself, when you would put together certain plans, and people, and the amount of time and effort you put into it, and certain, and then they just look at it and they'll try it for like half a day and they're like, oh, I'm like, you motherfuckers, like, you know,
Yeah.
like
Well,
it just
there's the emotional side for us too, is because as coaches, like you're putting and dedicating so much time into these plans that you're creating, and then somebody's like,
mhm,
I paid you, but I'm not going to follow it. And so then it's like you're getting money for something that you put a lot of energy in, and you're not getting that energy back and that feedback back to
exactly.
actually see if whether or not what you're doing is working, A, and B, to have the reward of seeing somebody accomplish the changes that are necessary to better their health. And for me, when I first started out, that was a huge, nobody prepared me for that. And I don't know if you felt the same way coming out of school, but I don't think I was prepared for business. I don't think I was prepared to understand what coaching actually meant. Whether it's down to the emotional side, or, even goal setting and trying to get somebody from one step to another step and all of that. But I don't know if you felt prepared at all, but I did not.
Business wise, no. But that the school never went. Did they even do anything on business?
Yeah,
I
it's like
don't
a 4 week
believe.
thing of like, here, build your
Was it?
resume. Yeah.
Okay,
You
yeah,
don't even remember it,
yeah.
so it can't have
No, I
been
don't even
good.
remember. Listen, I absolutely do not regret learning or going to CSNN. Just for myself, it was eye opening in a lot of aspects. Like it definitely changed how I eat, though. With regards to I grew up in a household where my dad made the meals. My mom would make it on the weekends, but my dad was an entrepreneur and stayed at home. So he worked from home, and then he'd make our dinners and lunches. But talk about a guy with incredibly disordered eating. No sauces, no salt, no pepper.
Mm.
It was boiled potato, boiled meat, and boiled veg, and we'd have that every. And I didn't really realize that that wasn't a normal thing until then. You get in twenties and you're starting to eat out in other people's houses, or they're like, "Are you not putting sauce on that?" I'm like, why would I put sauce on this? Like,
It's such an Irish thing. It's so
I
funny.
know, but I didn't realize I properly had disordered eating until I started going to CSNN, and I was like, "Oh Jesus Christ! Like, I need to maybe open up to these foods and these foods." And I don't even know why am I saying no to those foods? I don't even know what they taste like. I say I dislike this food, but I actually don't. I've never given it a proper chance.
Mm-mm.
Um, so it definitely opened up my eyes in that aspect. I'll eat anything now, to be honest.
Oh, I
Anything.
know you will. I also
Apart from celery. I hate celery.
So I used to meal prep for you too, which is really fun because I
Yeah,
know you will eat anything, maybe things that are old
anything.
and moldy and get sick from them.
Dude, the one time I've ever gotten food poisoning was from this Lynn over here. That
Whoa, it wasn't. You mean you left the thing in the fridge too long and
I
decided to
I
eat
left
it?
it. It was zucchini bread, I think.
Something like
And
that. Like
yeah, I
coconut
left it.
zucchini bread.
Something like that. I left it a little too long. I remember eating it and going to bed, and like I felt a little off going to bed. But
Mm.
again, I've never had food poisoning, so I was like, "Oh, am I getting sick? I'm overworked as a trainer. I don't know." And then I woke up the next morning, I was a little off, and then on the way to work, it was not pretty.
Oh my God, so
It was
good.
not pretty.
You're the only one who ever got sick from like the meal prep food that we did. So good.
I'm I'm known to my friends as like I take chances
Mm.
with food, so it was bound to happen at some point.
I
You
appreciate you
know.
saying that. It wasn't my fault. It was
Listen, I'm loosey goosey on the smell test. If
Sean is too, though, and I think it's like just like an Irish thing. Like he'd be happy eating the meat and potatoes and never eat anything else ever in his life. It's
I
like it's
know
ingrained in your genetics somehow. I I don't know. It's actually quite interesting in my opinion.
that is actually one thing I wanted to chat to you about.
Mm,
Um, Huge in the other thing that almost annoyed me in the personal training with regards to nutrition is if it fits your macros.
mm,
So and calorie counting
mm-hmm,
overall.
mm-hmm.
I just want to know what your thoughts are on that because
Do
I
you
have
want
my
to
own thoughts.
do you want to just kind of tell me a little bit
So
more?
yeah, so I think that to get someone to go on an app like MyFitnessPal, where they're able to track their food over a day or a week, I think is an amazing tool at the start of someone's journey to be like, okay, the reason you've tried X amount of things over the last 10 years and you haven't been able to lose weight is because I think you're actually overeating. You're not counting these snacks, you're not looking at this, the bottle of pop you have every day. It's not, yeah. So like that first like 2, 3, maybe a month of tracking, I think can be 100% valuable and eye-opening to a client where they're like, holy shit, I didn't realize like I was eating that much. My issue with it is after a month. I know trainers years that track their calories every single day. And I'm like, you have an eating disorder. Like, do you not realize you have an eating disorder?
I
You've been
literally
tracking
just
your
put on here disordered eating because
yeah, like
yeah.
you but I so that's I see people getting their clients to do it. There's a famous female on Instagram, I won't mention her, but that's her main thing is like I'm like, sweetheart, like I want to sit her down and be like, you have an eating disorder. I'm like, you've taken the joy out of one of the things that we should be enjoying every day. Like you count every bit of food that goes in your mouth. Do you not see this as a tool?
Mm.
Like surely after years of counting calories, you can gauge a little bit like 200 grams of rice. Okay. Like, you know,
I absolutely
um,
agree with you.
yeah,
So
that's my only issue with it.
I have definite things to say about this, obviously. So I did a podcast actually with somebody who specializes in disordered eating probably a couple weeks ago. And I felt super off within the podcast itself because as we were talking and as she was talking and going through her stuff, I was like, and it's a question that I actually brought up with her. I said, how many holistic nutritionists do you think actually have disordered eating? Or did we create disordered eating by becoming holistic nutritionists? And this is something that I brought up with other, practitioners within the field too, to kind of see what their thought is on it. Is like, because we like let's say orthorexia, for example, we hyper focus on certain things and being healthy and only
Mm-hmm.
eating those things. And if we vary from one thing to another, I think, the majority of us could potentially end up with some type of disordered eating, whether that's like, oh, I ate gluten, so that's definitely going to cause something down the
Mm-hmm.
line. Like, and then is it that thought that actually causes that symptom to arise? Are you so, and I've toyed around with this quite a bit. Obviously, with my autoimmune condition, I know there's foods that affect me, but it's only because I've tested them a whole bunch of times, and I know for a fact that it's not in my head. It's really there. Um, but I think that it is a real risk, and if we're not careful on how we coach our clients, everything that we do has to be used as a tool and not as an absolute. And when we start bringing ideologies into our practice, that's when we are going to end up actually breaking other people. And I'm confident in saying that because you can see it, right? Like within your own um, way of navigating nutrition. It's such a vast topic to begin with, but I think we can absolutely end up doing more damage than good if we're not careful.
And that's the thing. And that's one of the reasons I stopped
Coaching.
giving nutrition advice myself was I noticed in myself I had some disordered eating.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, who am I to give? And that's why I look around in the personal training space as well. I'm like, the majority of you fuckers have eating disorders. For you to give any nutrition advice to anyone is shocking, really. And then especially just to get them to like track every bit of thing that goes in their mouth for months at a time.
Well, the
The
stress that
joy has been, dude, and the joy has been taken out of life. So
Mhm.
well done.
Yeah, the stress that that puts on a person, I think, can be very damaging. I think if somebody has a true illness, for example, like an autoimmune condition or leaky gut
Mm-hmm.
or clear like digestive issues, I think tracking food and having a journal to kind of see what symptoms arise from it is one thing, but to use it as a permanent thing in place is actually really dangerous and probably not a great thing to do. I agree with you wholeheartedly on that. Um, and I understand exactly what you're saying is like you recognize the fact that you have a bit of disordered eating when you get into the sphere, like because
Of course.
and and I think it's getting more and more complicated as time goes on. Like, like my background's in, eco nutrition, let's say, like environmental aspects, like my garden is a huge thing. I think honestly, the best advice that I can give to people now is like just get closer to nature. Understand where your food comes from, see how it's raised, look at what the effort is that goes into the food that's created. What are you grabbing off the shelf? So one thing I see a lot with new coaches is that they dive into the most complex thing that they possibly can, like, ooh, track your food, or ooh, do this with this massive body systems, assessment or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
when most people just need to move a bit more and eat a little bit better, and in terms of eat a little bit better, like stop eating the processed junk food that is literally just a marketing product, you know? It's mass produced, it's not good for you.
It's natural, Lynn. It says natural. I know. I
Well,
know.
well,
That's one that gets everyone.
yes, yeah, yeah.
Like everyone. Like my mom will say back to me, it says it's natural, Kevin. I'm like, what does that mean? Like, what does natural actually mean? It means nothing.
It just because something's natural doesn't mean that it's good for you. For example, like I can walk out into the
What,
forest and eat a mushroom
what does
that's
it mean, man?
natural, but it's not great for you. Like
Yeah.
it's and that's the thing is like it's such a big topic to get into. And so when you do start coaching people, you do have to be really sure of what you're coaching and not
100%.
just and the I'm going to go back to the ideology thing, right? Like if you start putting your
Yeah.
ideologies and what has worked for you, something that's come up a lot for me lately, which is relevant to business, but also like nutrition, is like not telling somebody what to do because you want them to do it, but sharing your experience and letting them find their own way around it. So like the coaching versus consulting aspect, but like just sharing your experience versus like you have to do this in order to get better, because what worked for me is absolutely not going to necessarily work for you.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And then throw in emotion. As I said earlier on, it's very emotional for people. So it's, yeah, fair play to you for going into the whole nutrition world and that coaching business, because it is a minefield. There's a lot. There's a lot to it.
well, and then there's a lot of emotions between coaches, like
100%.
if it fits your macros, I'm vegan, I'm carnivore, I'm vegetarian, I'm this, I'm that. And my way is,
Keto, paleo, yeah.
it's, and those to me are all like definite ways of improving health. But what the main core thing at the root of all of those is like people are just eating more wholesome food, and cutting out the junk food. So does it have to have a label? Does it have to be um does it have to be like
What's
rules, all these
for
rules?
sure. What's your thoughts on veganism as a nutrition business?
Kevin, why do you have to ask me this? I actually don't talk about this a lot.
Let's
um
let's get rid of some of your audience here.
Sorry guys, here we go. I have to be honest that I think that it is not a complete way of eating. Anything that you have to rely on supplementation to have a well-balanced diet, in my opinion, is not healthy.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that aspect. If we dive into the environmental aspects of veganism, I have a hard time with everything that's happening right now in terms of meat replacements, lab grown meat, especially with my background in permaculture and understanding how food is grown and understanding how monocrops are grown. I have a really hard time with the whole, okay, I'm going to also say this. It's like, I think vegans can, like the diet itself can be well done.
Mm-hmm.
I think it takes a certain constitution to be able to digest that amount of carbohydrate and those types of food. I think the majority of the way that food is grown right now is very dangerous and very poisonous for us. There's a lot of monocrops, there's a lot of glyphosate, there's a lot of chemicals that go into it. There's a lot of destruction in terms of our environment that goes into it. The Amazon is being completely destroyed because of it, which is actually very integral to the entire world's whole environment. So in terms of those aspects, so when people get on their soapbox and start talking about the environment and how veganism is better for the environment, I don't see that at all. And when you start digging, you cannot grow nutritious food without animals. It's impossible. You need worms, you need like a microbiome in the soil. You need, for example, what I learned recently, which was really interesting, is that the microbes in the soil need vitamin B, cobalt. They need vitamin B in order to exchange nutrition with the plants that are growing, for example. The only way that vitamin B actually gets put into the soil is through the feces of cows or ruminant animals. So if you take away the animal, right, and start using chemical fertilizers, which we all know are not great for the environment, that we're running out of, that the environment is apparently unable to regenerate, we're missing that really important thing in the soil in order to keep the microbes healthy. By turning the soil, we're destroying the entire microbiome of our soil, which I can only imagine would in turn destroy us too, because we are a microbiome and we rely on that microbiome in the soil. I could talk about this honestly for hours because it is something that I work so closely with right now. But I can look at, Switzerland is 1/3 agricultural land, for example. A lot of it is monocropping, and there's probably 1/3 of the amount of chemicals that are allowed here in comparison to the United States. But when you watch how, for example, sunflower oil is grown here, they leave the sunflowers until they are pretty much black and moldy before they start cutting them down to actually process the seeds that are on them to use for oil. So I know that it probably goes through some kind of chemical process in order to clean it or whatever, but you can only imagine how much mold is actually making it into this processed oil from that plant. And it's no longer nutritious and ripe and healthy, it's dying. So you're eating something that, could be debated as being healthy or not, depending on who you look at on the current research. Seed oils are not great for us. But is it the seed oil that's not great for us, or is it the way that it's grown? And that could be seen as a vegan food. And all these oils are being put into all of these new vegan products. And I had a really hard time when I walk into my garden and I pick something off and I know that there has been zero chemicals. The taste, the way it makes me feel, the approach to actually cultivating the land. And this is what I think we need. I think we need to be closer to nature. We need to cultivate land. We need to move more. We need to go back to what actually is natural for us. And monocropping in any sense of the matter is not. And that can be tightly correlated to veganism in some capacity, but it's all one big giant topic.
Yeah, I'm with you. Listen, I agree. I agree with everything you said. That's it. I have friends that are vegans. It's funny, vegans seem to be. I have friends that are paleo. What camp you're in is whatever camp you're in, whatever side you decided to pick. But they seem to be the only ones that continue. It's almost like propaganda.
It's very
Continuous.
scary.
They get into it, like where it's continuous stories every day about just how good vegan. Do you know that the one? Again, there's loads of issues. You mentioned the meat replacements or the alternative meats, and why do you need that if you're vegan? Why do you want something that tastes like meat if you've made a decision to not eat meat? Like, why? You know what I'm saying? Like, why do
100%.
you need, like, you've chosen to eat vegetables, you've chosen no meat, but yet you're getting something that is a meat replacement that tastes just like meat. Like, what? Why are you doing that?
Let me tell you one of my experiences that was really difficult for me because when I when I was teaching at CSNN, like one of the main courses that I teach is actually eco nutrition, right? And so in that course, obviously, as holistic nutritionists, a lot of what we learn is eating a more plant-based diet, and eating a more plant-based diet only means that we are, getting enough fiber and including plants and vegetables and all of these things in our diet. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to be vegan or vegetarian, but would you agree with me in like a holistic nutrition certification, it's more plant-based, less meat oriented?
100%.
Okay.
100%.
So I'm at the beginning of my eco nutrition course. Obviously, I try not to like take one camp or another. I know what works well for my body. And I think, vegetarianism could work for many people based on their heritage, but I know it doesn't work for me. And at the beginning of that class, I was actually testing out carnivore, and I had been carnivore for like 2 months, at that point. And so obviously, yes.
Were you eating like organ meats, or were you simply just like, it was organ meats daily?
It was any animal product, really, but I really did try and get the liver, and I still try and get liver in my diet on a daily basis. Well, not really daily, but at least once a week, pate or something along those lines.
Yeah,
it's essential in my opinion. There's a reason that animals eat the organ meats first, and it's because they are the most nutritious. It is where we get the majority of our bioavailable vitamins, in my opinion. So anyways, of course, I'm going through the course and people are asking me, and I get some pretty fiery vegans in there, obviously. And I'm like, look, I'm carnivore right now. So like, we can debate this for as long as you want to, but until you actually, there are many vegans that I don't think actually go out into a garden and actually see what happens in there. You can take, a plot that has zero animal inputs, but your plants after a couple years are going to die because they don't have what they need in that soil in order to grow efficiently. And that means that then we are losing nutrients in our food. So that was like actually a really challenging thing for me to kind of learn, is like, how do you navigate the space with the knowledge that you have, and just give little bits of information, hoping that somebody will maybe try to experience something else. Because I think in the coaching world, it doesn't matter whether we're personal trainers, nutritionists, whatever you are, it can get really easy to like sit, kind of stay stuck in what you believe is right and not continue to learn. And as science evolves, as we evolve, as the world evolves around health and wellness, we have to be willing to shift and change.
I'm with you.
I don't know if that answered your question, but
I don't even remember what the question was.
yeah, no bother.
It's a conversation. Yeah, the vegan. Yeah, it is. It's just a minefield of. There's a lot of old rhetoric that comes up.
Well,
Lot
there's
of
like
it with regards
eggs are
to
bad for you, you know, with the
eggs
cholesterol
and
thing.
cholesterol, heart disease with meat.
I don't
Even
even
those meat studies, when they actually go into them, like with the increase in, it was also like they were getting fast food burgers. Like it's like, okay, like we can't. What are we? What are we
Where's your
doing here?
food coming from is really the question
Yeah,
that we need to be asking, is like, where is that vegan burger coming from? Where is that pack of chips coming from? Where's that garlic that you're buying coming from? Because I bet you a lot of people have no clue that the majority of their garlic comes from China, which is
really.
yes. So something I used to do at the end of the eco nutrition course was to take a lot of plant-based foods, actually. Each student would get one, they could pick a vegetable or whatever. So garlic, coffee, bananas, ginger, even. There was a whole list of them. And they could each, excuse me, choose one of those to study and kind of talk about where they come from, how they're produced, how the production has changed over the last 20 to 30 years, the methodology behind how they grow that food. And when you start digging into a lot of almonds, for example, like if you look at how almonds are grown
Yeah,
and what they do to the bees in order to actually like pollinate all those almond trees, it is like they're literally rented from across the United States and trucked over there. How can that be considered veganism? Like, in my opinion, like if you're really for the animals, how can that be healthy for them? Like, they're highly, highly intelligent animals or beings or insects, whatever you want to call them. And it's quite fascinating. But when you look at the destruction that the way that we eat our food, you can't possibly ignore those things, in my opinion.
and I think probably ending on this vegan. Both of us are not shitting on vegetables.
Right.
Like I eat vegetables every day. I was actually only having a chat with my friend. She's in New Zealand traveling around last week. And it got to like 6 o'clock and I have my meals prepped and I was like, I just want like a big salad. Like I just had a craving. So I went out and found a place that does like big salads. So like it's not that I'm against vegetables. I just think a holistic approach.
Well, nutrition doesn't mean eliminating something, and that's back
Agreed.
to that whole disordered eating aspect again, is like if you are eliminating something altogether, unless you have some very good reason like allergies or like a very severe immune condition to something, which often we will have allergies linked to that. But unless you have that, there is no reason to eliminate an entire food group, like I think that is where it gets really dangerous. And
And like the
something
mass
you
production of meat is gross. Like
absolutely, like a
those
CAFO is disgusting, absolutely
disgusting.
disgusting. Because it breaks the
Disgusting.
laws of nature. And that's kind of back, like, really what I want to put forward is, like you said, we are not like pooping all over this whole thing. It's just uh, balance between nature and what is natural and not. And I think we have to get comfortable with the idea of death a little bit more. And also connect back to the land. Like, we are so disconnected from where we came from, which is, we're borrowed energy. We are
Mm.
borrowed from the land, we are borrowed energy, and we are so disconnected from what it means to be human. And I think for me, that's kind of my soapbox for the next, little while, is just be in nature, rewild a little bit, and stop it's all down to corporate. um
The man.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I like that phrase, borrowed energy.
we 100% are borrowed energy from I mean, who knows how old we are, let's be real here.
Borrowed energy. That's a nice way of looking at it. Borrowed energy. I'd never heard
Yeah,
that before.
and we really have to give let's say cadence to the magic that we have at our fingertips. Like, living is really magical, and we've forgotten how
Hmm.
amazing it is. Like, they like gardening, I think, has really helped me with that. Going out into the forest has really helped me with that. Understanding how nature actually functions has really changed my view on nutrition, but like living holistically, like what that really means. Mental well-being, yoga, like all of those things have helped me really tie together what my understanding of healthy living and wellness actually means. And it has definitely morphed since I took my certification in nutrition. And I like teaching nutrition, but I find that it's too one-sided. We need
Which
stress.
which
Well,
side?
nutrition side. So like
Oh,
the
okay, yeah, yeah. Sorry.
like stress, sleep, movement, and then sleep. Like, we can't just focus on nutrition to have a holistic wellness approach, because then you're missing all these other things.
But it is one of the keys.
Absolutely. So like the nutrition program, it's a health coaching program, but we have 4 pillars, and those are the 4 pillars. But at the bottom is self-care. So before any of those kind of 4 pillars can take place, you have to have self-care at the base of it. So like, what is the reason that you're actually searching for wellness? And are you dedicated to taking care of yourself? Because that's really at the base of all the other pillars that come above that.
That's actually totally off topic, but you mentioned yoga there. I went deep into yoga
I
for a few
know.
years. Like
Yeah.
I did my teacher training, and I was so into handstands. And again, another blessing that came out of COVID, where I was doing these 90-minute power classes like 3 times a week, just completely torture myself. Got tendinopathy in both elbows.
Oh my God.
Um, but I'm good now. But they, when I went to go back to it, there was definitely a switch that changed in me, where I went into class and I almost had the feel of like, everyone here doesn't like themselves, and that's why they're here. And I'm not, I like myself now. So
Yeah.
I don't want to be here, you know? That's almost, and then I like had that, went down that. I was like, oh shit, was I just in yoga for all that time, almost like suffering myself, just because people were like, oh, yoga is good for like meditation and in person, your alignment and namaste. And I was like, oh, it's just a load of people in a room suffering together. A load of people in a room that just don't like themselves, all suffering together. I know there's complete counter arguments to that and stuff, but that's how I felt when I went back into that class. And I was like, my client actually only texted me yesterday saying, I'm thinking about getting into Bikram yoga. I'm like, 100%, man. I did my time. I
Mm.
did my time. If you
Mhm.
want to do it, we all got to do our time somewhere.
Well, and it's funny because when, well, in the CSNN curriculum, obviously we learn that yoga is something that is a great lifestyle recommendation, right? And it was really interesting, is like, obviously I went through the courses and learned about yoga and the importance of it, but I never really actually tried yoga or practiced yoga or even tried meditation, because even though the book really touched me in a profound way, I never really dove into it until it became so dire that I needed to change the way my body was reacting, because I was in such a fight or flight mode all the time.
Mm-hmm.
My nervous system was so messed up that and I tortured myself, and I say this to Sean a lot too. He's like, why are you torturing yourself? Because to have true health and wellness, you don't have to torture yourself. And that didn't actually click into my head until after actually we trained together and we stopped. So Kevin was also my coach for a while. I had
Life changer.
massive gains.
I'm a life changer.
Yeah, I loved the way my body looked at the time, but I was working, 50, 60 hours a week. I had 3 kids. I was meal prepping. So everything that I was doing was like on my feet. I was literally grocery shopping for like 10 people and cooking for 10 people weekly. And then coming to the gym and training, 2, 3 times a week, lifting heavy,
Mm-hmm.
like doing hard things. But I was fucking torturing myself. Like, I did not need to live that way. And I am
No.
fully in the belief that that is what caused me to have a burnout. And I pushed it even then. I was burning out during that time and I kept doing it. And then now I have an autoimmune condition that it took 2 years to dig myself out of. But during that time, I did a yoga certification. And the one thing that I learned was really just, if I put self-care at the base of everything that I do, it all gets so much better. Like, it doesn't have to be torture to be feeling well in your body. And you need to be figuring out how to actually respond to what your body is asking of you, right? Like, and things that like pop up for me now, like disease really is dis-ease in the body, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you're not comfortable, there's something wrong and your body's trying to communicate. And then the responsibility, right? Your responsibility for your wellness is actually your ability to respond to things, right? So how are you responding to the trauma or the stress or the thing that you're torturing yourself with? Are you responding to it well? Is your body liking it? Is it not liking it? And so that mind shift around what wellness actually means has probably been the most profound thing. I have another client that I'm working with, and she's like, I think I need to get cancer. Literally her
Jesus
words. I
Christ.
think I need to get cancer in order to change my behavior, because she doesn't know how to live any differently.
Oh, that's intense. Um, but yeah, yeah. Even with my yoga, that that whole realm that I dove down, there was maybe even in the gym, nutrition, everything. It was almost a trying to fix myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I had the base of I'm broken. I need to be fixed. Okay, what are people saying that'll fix? Okay, working out, done. Okay, nutrition. Okay, let's get that in. Okay, still need to be fixed. That's not working. Let's go down the yoga rabbit hole. You know what I mean? Let's go down these spirituality drugs where I'm just taking a shitload of drugs in a room with a load of strangers, vomiting in a bucket. Let's see if that fixes me, you
Yeah.
know? So, yeah, it does take, maybe it takes a
Because
cancer, a cancer scare for some people, or it just takes, for me, one of the main, um, I think therapy is an unreal. I don't know how we got down this rabbit hole of just talking about this,
I'm
but
in.
uh, I'm into. Uh, I was in California in a center, not an addiction center. I was in a so I'm a drug addict. Um, so it was my client was talking about I was deep into personal development at that time. I still am, but not as again, I was from the point of I'm not adequate, I'm not enough, and I need to fix myself. That's where I mean, like I'm still into personal development, but I'm very much in the thought of like I just want to add this to my repertoire. I want to,
Mm.
I don't need to fix everything. So we talked about this center down there called Esalen, and they do these week long retreats or 2 week long retreats, and you go down there. So he was like, I'll put some money towards it. I'll book flights. I know. He goes, you're a lifelong learner, as a Christmas present, unreal Christmas present.
Mm.
So I looked up and there was a course called Emancipating the Soul of Trauma's Grasp, an embodied mystical approach. And I was like, ooh, a week long, living there, food all organized. And I'm like, fuck it, let's do it. So I went down there and I found it was heavy. It was heavy,
For
like
sure.
a lot of people in the course that had some bad things done to them,
Yeah.
bad things done to them. And I was just sitting there like, well, my mother could have given me more love. My dad could have hugged me. Um, so we were on our one of our last days, and we were doing. Do you ever hear of EMDR?
No, I don't think so.
So it's like eye movement, eye movement desensitization, something.
Oh, I have heard
It's
of that.
where
Yes.
it's like tapping or like sounds, and it's just a modality of therapy, like Gestalt or talk therapy. It's just another modality. So it was my first experience of it. So we're lined up, group are lined up here, and the group are lined up behind us. They're facing that way, and we're facing this way, and they've set up two speakers on either side.
Mm.
So the speaker's kind of just doing a. So the woman Renee, she starts talking, she starts guiding us through it, and the girl beside me starts erupting crying. Like, I
Mm.
mean, erupting. And like when a baby kind of cries on a plane, at the start, you're very sympathetic towards it because no one wants the baby to cry. The baby doesn't want to cry. The parents don't want the thing to cry, So you're like, oh, like, it's okay, it's fine. And then like 10 minutes go by and you're like, okay, come on, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like do something. So she's erupting crying, like erupting. And then it gets even more, and I'm starting to build up like, okay, she's taken away from the experience of everyone. Like, we need to get this girl outside, like
Mm.
someone take her outside. And then like 20 minutes go by. And I'm like, okay, like now I'm not even listening to the woman. I'm just like in angry mode. Like,
Mm.
take her outside and let us get on with this exercise. This woman's not getting anything out of it, and we're not getting anything out of it. And it built and built and built and built. And then just this thought popped in my head of, I just want to be fucking fixed. And then I just started crying my eyes out.
Oh my God.
And I was like, oh God, Kevin, like you still think you're broken, dude. Like, Christ. And then that was tail end of 2019, and then next year was COVID. So you just had to sit with it. But yeah, it sometimes just takes whether the woman needs a cancer scare or she just needs a moment of like something to smack her in the face. Yeah, it just takes something sometimes just to be like, fuck, am I still thinking this way?
Yeah,
Like,
I totally get it. Like there's a huge difference between like personal development, continuous learning, continuous understanding, pattern recognition that are all really
mm-hmm,
positive things. And then
mm-hmm,
there's the difference between torturing yourself in those things to say that I have to be
mm-hmm,
well or fixed. And I think we start our lives with the idea that our body one day will be broken as we age. And I think
mm-hmm,
that's a very backwards approach, if anything, just to say, okay, well, our body as it gets older will break, or that we are broken naturally. Back to like you saying, like, I need to do this, like nutrition has to be checked off the box, this has to be checked off the box. And part of it is our environment. Like a lot of what is, let's say, breaking us or causing a lot of illness, I think, is how we live culturally. So back to that nature part, back to cooking even, when you were saying like you're taking the joy out of food, before you wouldn't have made food alone. You wouldn't have been grabbing your food from a fast food, restaurant. You would have gone for a walk with somebody, you would have foraged some food, you would have gone hunting with a person, you would have had that. And those things I don't think change evolutionarily speaking in such a short period of time. And we talk about like ancestral eating, and we often think that's like 20 or 30,000 years ago. But if you look back, even 50 to 100 years ago, we were still mostly living that way.
mm-hmm.
And so I think the idea of like what is broken has to be shifted, like, is it a product of our environment or is it us? and I don't think it's the human body that's broken. I think it could be a product of our experience really within society, within our culture. But I had similar things, when I would be meditating and stuff. It's like yoga did help me kind of dig into those like more kind of traumatic aspects of myself. Everything that I have been through, it like I have a crazy history, and it's not one of the things that was really eye-opening for me, and I was still living in Vancouver at the time, was I was at that time I had like a fibromyalgia diagnosis, but the pain therapist that I was working with was like, write everything that you have gone through in your life down on paper that you wouldn't want to see your child or your niece or nephew or whatever go through in their life. Dude, I like filled like 3-lined pieces of paper, and when you look at that and you hold it and it's tangible and it's not just sitting in here in this body, it becomes really clear to you that you are holding on to so much stuff. And I think your response was super normal. Like you got angry at somebody else's emotions because we've been taught to like stuff them down. And, like my response would have been to go to that. Like now, I'm going to say now, my response would have been to go to that woman and just hug her, because that's probably not you, I know, but we can be real here, not a touchy-feely guy, Kevin, but that would have been my response.
Depends on the person.
But where do you think that comes from? It's like, do you think that's just you innately, or do you think that's, a product of the way that you were raised? Like your dad and your mom could have loved you a little bit more?
100% environment. 100%.
Right.
100%.
And I think that's what culturally we're kind of missing. Closeness.
Yeah. Nutrition and movement, they're definitely they're a small piece of the puzzle, but they can get you there.
I agree with you. I agree. It's a good start. I mean,
So
you have to start somewhere.
For sure. Are you doing any training right now apart from yoga?
So like I said, it's been like a serious dig out of the burnout. So some severe chronic fatigue issues when we first moved here. And then I started taking a medication. I'll be super honest. I started taking a medication for the chronic fatigue, and getting off that medication was intense. Bro. The worst experience of my life. So I took that medication, very much against like my natural instincts for holistic wellness and all of those things. And so coming off of it, like really, 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 really hard. So I just actually started kind of feeling better after August last year. And building up my endurance again has just been top priority. So obviously working with Sean, who, works around endurance, it's really cool actually as a team, because we come at it from very, very different approaches. He is kind of the torture person. He loves to do hard workouts. He loves doing all of those things. And I always wonder, like, what the fuck is wrong with you guys? Like to be able to do that is just crazy. Like you guys are built different, in my opinion. Anyways, so endurance training, and what's really cool is to kind of see what Sean's applying to athletes and then using it within my chronic illness, which I don't actually like calling it a chronic illness, but using it within like a metabolic disorder, let's say, is really actually quite fascinating, and it seems to be working. So doing like low intensity zone 2 training, 0-1 zone training, even just to build up the endurance. For example, like I could barely walk 200 meters at my worst last year without having to sit down and take a break. And then I'd probably need a nap for 2 hours after that. Like it got to that point.
Jesus.
It got to that point. And me at my like top. And now, for example, I'm doing, 30 minutes of yoga a day, and I just did a 6K walk with Sean in an hour. So feeling pretty good about it. So personal training, I'm not really, I tried to do some weight training, but it fatigued me. So I am just doing body weight stuff and trying what I can.
Slow
Um,
and steady.
Slow and steady wins the race, my friend.
It
Um,
does.
yeah, but I mean, it's been a journey. I think that's really like, if I could end on one thing, like all of this is a journey. And to say that you know everything at the beginning of it is um, short-sighted, let's say.
What lastly, what on do you guys have like a social media strategy?
Absolutely.
Just asking business now. Do you have like you have to like do you just do it start of the week, start of the month, or you just have like an avatar audience in mind and then that day you're like, oh, I want to do this.
So Sean was doing willy-nilly for a really long time, like creating content, having all these ideas floating around in his head, wanting to put out this course and that course and this blog and collaborate with this person. And it was kind of just like all over the place. And so he always felt like he had to get so much more done. Um, and so what we've started doing now, which works really well, is planning out. We're starting with 1 month because I've just got him to this point, but 1 month of planned social media.
For Sean.
Um, well, he struggles because he wants to do everything and he's got that
I
guilt
get it.
and you know, like we
I
all
get it.
start there, I think. Um, I will say before I talk about social media is like my illness has taught me how to like build a business around how I want to feel within it. And I think that's really important is like I think we start by building a business doing what we see everybody else doing instead of building the business around what we want our life to look like and how it can feel. And so I think that's a really important thing to do is like your business is going to look vastly different than mine. My social media plan looks vastly different than Sean's.
Mm-hmm.
So Sean has like a minimum amount of things that he wants to get out each week. And so what we do is create a calendar, like much like this, where it
Mm-hmm.
kind of has a topic down the side. So like this week was the zone 2 video and then everything that was related to that. So he created one presentation, and this is what's really cool is that you can do one big presentation and then that can be turned into a blog post, into a YouTube video. It can be clipped for reels, it can be clipped for shorts, it can be clipped for everything that you need for the week. You can turn that into some tweets, turn that into some static posts on Instagram, and then you spend an 8-hour day just creating that one presentation with all your stuff and schedule it out all over the platforms using Buffer or whatever. YouTube, you know, you can schedule within the app. Sean does drafts in Instagram. I'm not a huge fan of that idea, but you know, usually using a scheduling app or scheduling within the apps. That way, for example, he does the admin on Monday and programming for his clients on Monday. Tuesday is his social media day. And then by Wednesday, he should be done. If he hasn't quite finished the scheduling part, maybe Wednesday morning will take up some of that. And then
Mm-hmm.
Thursday, Friday are flex days. And that means that he can start working on a course that he's building. He can go for a walk. He can take the day off. He can come to the garden with me. He can get his hands dirty, you know, like whatever it is that he chooses that he needs in that moment, because that's what's important in keeping us balanced within our work, I think has really helped shift his mind because he feels like
Mm-hmm.
by Wednesday, he's got everything he needs to get done and everything that he wants to get done is scheduled out. So you can see that it's going to happen. You can see that it's coming. And then you can relax and actually not feel guilty for taking that time off.
Yeah. Yeah. Social media has been a weird one for me because my social media is just me hiking and then stories of me just working out. And I'm like, I actually need a place, a storefront where, so yeah, I kind of in the last few weeks, I've gotten clear on my avatar, my audience, like who I genuinely love working with,
Mm-hmm.
um, and who almost like my younger self, really.
You are your own
That's,
ideal client, Kevin.
yeah. So, yeah, so that's what I'm the reason I was just asking that I did out last night where I'm like, okay, commit to 15 to 20 reels for this month. Just do it, put it out, but have an idea of like, okay, so would this benefit my audience? Would I have liked this information when I was blah blah blah? So yeah, that's the route I'm gonna go this month, and then we'll see next month. We
What
just
topics
gotta
are you talking on?
only training. So my ideal client is, the way I kind of worded it, is a weekend athlete.
Oh,
So like
the weekend
not
warrior?
you're yeah, kind of like a weekend athlete. So you're just not someone that like loves to work out, plays sports maybe, but has a few niggles and injuries and is a little bit stuck and wants some guidance. So like that's where I was. I absolutely love training, and then injuries, whether it be I had tendinopathy in both elbows, my left shoulder, almost my right knee is almost like brand new. We're almost there. So I'm like, even with my right knee, I'm like, why don't I just document my journey, what exercise I'm doing to rehab my knee? Like, this is again what I would have loved, instead of me having to go pay X number of courses that I did and X number of things. Like, just put it all out there for free. Who cares?
Well, and
And if
that's a
someone
big
wants,
thing.
someone takes, yeah, go on.
It's a big thing in the industry when you're coaching. It doesn't matter. Like all of this is relevant to everybody, really. Is that if you give something out for free, they're never going to buy from you, and that's the biggest load of baloney I've ever heard. Like people need to know who you are and need to know what your experience and your expertise is before you can even start selling to them. That's the top of the
Mm-hmm.
funnel thing, and that's the part that I think is really hard for a lot of people to grasp, is that you need to show that you're competent in what you do, and you need to be able to show that what
Mm-hmm.
you're doing is working. And back to, all you have to do is document. And this is a Gary Vee quote, and I'm going to put it in here: document, don't create. Right? So you don't have to create anything necessarily. You just have
Exactly.
to show what you're doing, and you have to show that it works. And that's what's going to grab people's attention. And so I think being clear on like the topics, Sean does like a thought of the day thing. And I think that's kind of in line with what you're kind of thinking, is like doing a reel for, even 30 seconds to a minute once a day on what you're doing and what your thought was during your training session. It's information that's valuable to somebody.
For sure.
I think it's a good way of doing it. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see. It's really cool when you start actually applying some social media tactics, and you can start digging into SEO and keyword research and actually figuring out which topics are relevant to your audience. In that sense, that is when it gets really fun. For example, the Zone 2 presentation that Sean did, he did some heavy keyword research, and in less than a month, I think it's 22,000 views, right? And that's solely
YouTube.
Yeah. And he did another like kind of skyscraper blog, for example, and I can't remember what topic it was on, but now he's at least on the second page of Google for that search, right? So I think there's just like a natural progression in how you work within your business. There's a natural progression on how you start with your social media, and most people just have a really hard time showing up on social media, and that's the biggest barrier to entry. But once people do, especially when they create reels, carousels, or like shorts on YouTube, it is insane how fast the traction grows.
And that's for me. There's a lot of, in the group that I'm in, a lot of the hesitation is like, eventually one of the guys asked me, like, giving me permission yesterday to take a day off. The guy was like, you've been talking about posting on Instagram for how long? Like, what is the hesitation? And I was like, I don't know. And he was like, honestly, man, it just sounds like you care too much what people think. He was like, fucking John, who went to school with you, who gives a shit what he thinks? Like, if you post a shit reel, you'll learn from it and you'll do better the next. Like, this isn't and I was like, when he said it again, I almost again permission. I'm like, what am I hesitating for here? Like, I feel I have a good product. I feel I've spent so many years learning. Like today, I'm just gonna post up. I did bench press. I've been doing bench press for the last 4 weeks. Lynn, I can't tell you how excited I am doing bench press. Like, I hadn't benched in and again, it just happened by accident. I had the elbow issues, and my mate Luke at the tail end of 2020, we were about to go for drinks on Christmas Eve. And I was like, why don't you come to the gym? We'll have a workout and then we'll go out. And he was like, you want to do bench press? I'm like, geez, I haven't benched in a long time. My, shoulder stuff, I have elbow stuff. And the next day, my elbows were so bad that mid-January, I had to go doctor and get anti-inflammatories because anything I did hurt. Everything. I'd open up a door, elbow, like anything, putting on my jacket. I was like, this is picking up. And then working with clients, I had to pick up everything. So then, like, that was like my final straw. Where I was like, right, I need to fix my elbows. Like, I'm not living with this pain anymore. And also, it's taken away all the shit I want to do. Like, I have clients that are reaching all these numbers, and I'm like, oh, I want to do that. The reason I got into this was, so then by accident, again, I've been, let's call it healing. I've been healing myself for the last like 2 years, and then I came over here and I wrote out my program. I was like, you know what, I'll do incline and decline on either day just to like incorporate some push, and I'll just do dumbbell, because it'll be a little less, I'll be able to move around the injuries. And all the benches were taken apart from the barbell. I was like, oh, fuck. And I jumped on the barbell and it felt amazing then. Like, it felt amazing. And then, yeah, today, I woke up today and I was like, right, my post today is 100% just going to be me bench pressing and me being like, I couldn't do this. Like, this hurt me to the point of taking anti-inflammatories from a doctor. And now I'm doing this pain-free. This is like what I got into working out for, was just lifting weight. Like, this is what I wanted to do. Yeah, I went down the handstand and yoga route, but like, I'm back to basics. And this is like what I love to do, is lifting weight and getting strong.
There is nothing like it. And
It's the best.
It is. And it's like, for me, because I'm really small and everything, for me, it's like a fun party trick. Like, ooh, can you pull 200 pounds off the floor? Yeah, well, I
100%.
can. You know what I mean? Like, there's no way that you can do that. But like, there's something really empowering about that. And it's really hard for me to be around a fucking performance coach. Like, Sean is a performance coach, and he works with, we have CrossFit athletes that come in here that literally fill up our entire elevator. Like, one person is just half the elevator, and it's insane how big these people are. And I go, like, I would love to do what you're doing, and I get it. Like, that, there's nothing that feels better than having full command of your body. I think it's a very
100%.
beautiful thing. Really beautiful.
Like, just no pain, no restriction in what you want to do. And that's again where I think my audience is, like, people that love working out but have had to completely almost stop what they love doing because of little niggles. And then it almost becomes a belief, like, oh, I've just got bad elbows. I can't do that because my elbows,
Well,
So
if like, to be honest, like, if I told you like how many little niggles that I have, and if I let those little niggles get to me, I would never get out of bed. Like that.
100%.
And that's the thing, is like, I think there's the belief that our bodies are broken if we have pain, but they're not. You control a lot of that. And it's really powerful when you can come out of that. Like, for example, like what I used to, my elbows, I still have a lot of trouble with my elbows, but like, even the pain in my feet, my hands.
I got you, Lynn. Lynn, I got a program for you, all right?
Guys, this is how you sell, just FYI. You find your ideal client, you sweet talk them a bit, and then you sell them. But like, there's things that you can do for it. Like, I mean, it doesn't have to come down to medication and all of those things. It can be just based on movement and proper care for your body, and not having a ton of stress, and not having all these like, I don't know if you used any nutrition within your like anti-inflammatory approach, but
Ish. Yeah, pain. I'm not gonna sit here and say I know anything about pain science, but like, pain is simply just a signal for change. Something ain't. It's not liking it. Change it,
illness,
and then
too,
find
right?
ways around it to keep on working here, keep on ticking. You don't have to completely stop doing what you love doing. Like, again, just people don't have the tools, but Yeah,
If you want to
gotta
leave
get on my
the,
social. Go on.
okay, you want to get on your social media. I
Okay,
think
I
that's a
gotta
good,
get on
you do. You have to. If there's
it. I
one thing
gotta.
that you want to leave my audience with, what is it?
One thing. Um,
This is a great question. Nobody can ever answer.
it's a great question. Um, yeah, well, just what I am really discovering through my training is you don't have to be the guy that has like bad elbows or bad knees or bad, you know what I mean? Like you don't have to, any singular incident that happened or any pain that you have in your body, you don't have to be that person. Oh, I've got a bad back. I'm the guy with the bad back, or the girl with the I've got the gluten intolerance. I'm that girl. Like, yeah, singular things do not have to become part of your personality. Like
Mm.
forever evolving. Every day we wake up, brand new human. You can completely change your life on any single day. Um, and yeah, come buy my products. They'll be out soon.
Where do they
And
find you, Kevin?
so currently it's just a hiking Instagram, but kev.carroll on Instagram. And that's all I got. Just Instagram.
Amazing. All right,
Yeah.
man. I'm gonna stop recording, but thanks for being here today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.